could you do this?
You left me no choice!
This is a disaster!
You did this!
The night she discovered the truth did not explode into chaos the way betrayal usually does in stories. Instead, it unfolded in a suffocating quiet that pressed against her chest and made it hard to breathe. She had been folding laundry when his phone buzzed again and again on the coffee table, the screen lighting up the dim living room. He was in the shower, humming carelessly, unaware that his entire double life was seconds away from being exposed. She didn't mean to look at first. She had never been the suspicious type, never the jealous wife who checked pockets or scrolled through messages. But something about the name flashing repeatedly, saved under a man's nickname she didn't recognize, felt wrong. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the phone. The message preview was enough to turn her blood cold. "I missed last night already." Her heart pounded violently as if trying to warn her not to read further. But she unlocked the screen with the passcode she had known for years. What she saw was not a single mistake, not a moment of weakness, but a carefully maintained secret. Months of conversations, photos, hotel confirmations, inside jokes, promises, words he hadn't spoken to her in years were poured generously into another woman's inbox. Each scroll felt like a knife twisting deeper. She remembered the evenings he claimed to be stuck at work, the weekends he said he needed space, the sudden obsession with his appearance. All the small pieces she had ignored now locked together into an undeniable picture. Her knees weakened, and she sank onto the couch, staring at the glowing screen as if it might suddenly rearrange itself into something innocent. Tears blurred her vision, but she refused to let them fall yet. In the bathroom, the water stopped running. She quickly locked the phone and placed it back exactly where it had been, her movements mechanical, precise. When he walked out wrapped in a towel, smiling casually and asking what she wanted to watch that night, she looked at him and felt as though she were seeing a stranger wearing her husband's face. How long had he been lying so effortlessly? How many times had he kissed her goodnight after whispering the same affection to someone else? The humiliation burned hotter than the sadness. She thought about the years she had invested in their marriage, the dreams she had adjusted to fit his ambitions, the career she had paused so he could travel freely for business. Friends had occasionally hinted that he seemed distant, but she had defended him every time. "He's just stressed," she would say. Now the truth mocked her loyalty. He sat beside her that evening as if nothing had changed, scrolling through television channels, occasionally brushing his hand against hers. The familiarity of his touch made her stomach turn. Yet she said nothing, not because she was weak and not because she was afraid. She was thinking. Beneath the heartbreak, beneath the betrayal, something else was awakening, something steady and calculating. He believed she depended on him completely. He believed she would never leave, never challenge him, never survive without his income or approval. That belief was his greatest mistake. As he laughed at a joke on the television, unaware of the storm sitting inches away, she studied him quietly. She realized that confronting him in rage would only give him power, the power to deny, to manipulate, to minimize. No, she would not give him that satisfaction. She would wait. She would choose her moment carefully. And when she finally spoke, it would not be as a broken wife begging for honesty. It would be as a woman who had already begun rewriting her future. The following evening felt almost surreal in its calmness, as if the house itself was holding its breath in anticipation. She moved through the kitchen with steady hands, preparing his favorite meal, lighting candles, setting the table with the same care she had shown for years. If he noticed anything different about her, he didn't show it. He seemed relaxed, even cheerful, unaware that the foundation beneath his comfortable life was about to shift. When they sat down to eat, he talked casually about work, about a colleague's promotion, about plans for an upcoming trip he had never mentioned before. She listened quietly, watching him the way one observes a stranger on a train, curious, detached, almost analytical. The hurt was still there, but it had transformed into something sharper, more focused. Halfway through dinner, she reached beside her chair and placed a thick envelope gently on the table between them. He paused, fork in midair, eyebrows lifting in confusion. "What's this?" he asked lightly. Her voice, when she responded, was calm and even. Just something I think you should see. He opened the envelope with mild curiosity, but as he began pulling out the documents, his expression changed. First confusion, then disbelief, then a flicker of alarm. Bank statements with balances he had never seen. Business registration papers with her name listed as founder and sole owner. Investment portfolios showing steady growth over the past 2 years. Property documents for a small apartment purchased quietly in another part of the city. He looked up at her as if waiting for a punchline, but her face remained composed. What is all this?" he stammered. She folded her hands neatly on the table. "It's my company," she said softly. "The one you thought was just a hobby." The silence that followed felt heavier than any argument. He had teased her about those long hours on her laptop, about the online courses she took, about the calls she said were with clients. He had never taken her seriously. Now the evidence of her independence lay spread across the dinner table like a revelation. Before he could gather his thoughts, she reached into her pocket and placed his phone beside the documents. The screen was dark, but the meaning was clear. His face drained of color. For a moment, he tried to maintain composure. "What are you doing?" he asked, though his voice betrayed him. She met his eyes without anger, without tears. "I know," she said quietly. Just 2 words, but they carried the weight of everything she had discovered. He immediately began to speak. Fast, defensive, stumbling over explanations about stress, about feeling unappreciated, about it meaning nothing. But she raised her hand slightly, not aggressively, just enough to stop the flood of excuses. "Please," she said, "don't insult me further." That was when he truly saw her, not as the forgiving wife who would cry and eventually accept an apology, but as someone steady, someone no longer afraid. "I didn't build this because I planned to leave you," she continued, gesturing to the papers. "I built it because I never wanted to feel powerless again." She explained how, while he was busy staying out late and investing time in someone else, she had been investing in herself. She had studied markets, built partnerships, grown a client base quietly and consistently. Every time he dismissed her efforts, she worked harder. Every time he underestimated her, she proved him wrong silently. "You thought I stayed because I had no choice," she said, her voice still remarkably calm. "But I stayed because I loved you." Tears welled in his eyes now, not from being exposed, but from realizing how completely he had misjudged her. The power dynamic he had relied on had vanished in a single evening. "I don't need you to survive," she said finally. "I chose you, and you treated that choice like weakness." The words hung between them, undeniable and final. For the first time since their marriage began, he looked uncertain, almost afraid, not of losing money or reputation, but of losing her respect. And in that moment, he understood that her secret was never just about financial independence. It was about strength, dignity, and the quiet confidence of a woman who had already prepared herself for a future with or without him. Everything had changed, not because she discovered his betrayal, but because she revealed who she had become.